Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're actually talking about something a little different for this channel. We've only done a couple of these in the past, but we've started to do this thing where when we see new movies, we'd like to talk to you about them. Especially for the two that we're dropping today. Uh, these ones are horror films, and it's the month of October, so let's talk some horror movies. The first one we want to talk about is Barbarian. And you may not know what this movie is. I think it was kind of very quiet marketing. It's kind of like if you know, you know, kind of a thing. I learned about it just because I saw an interview on TV with Justin Long, which is someone that I like to watch for these movies. Sarah thinks it's interesting that I like watching his movies. um, but he's kind of a cool dude. You know, when I was younger, he was in movies like Accepted and whatnot, and thought he was a cool dude. So I heard he was in this movie, but all the advertisements barely saw him at all. I think he was in like 1.5 seconds worth of the trailer. So it really intrigued me of what happened. Um, so let's just jump right in. Let's just start talking about the movie. So this movie, it jumps in right away. Like, so the stuff that you're anticipating from the trailer, you are starting there immediately. We have our main character. She is trying to check in at her Airbnb in this neighborhood. It's dark out, so she really can't see what the neighborhood looks like. She just knows where she's trying to get to, you know, her own reservation. And when she gets there, she notices that someone is already there, which is awkward. So, you know, she's banging on the door. And then when she eventually talks to him, she's like, hey, I have this Airbnb scheduled already. And he says that he does too. So initially, we start to think like, this guy is up to something, right? And so, you know, she goes in the house and there's a lot of these interesting, like, horror tropes that you would think are going to happen and then you know where this is going to go. For instance, you know, he's offering to make her a drink, some tea. She rejects the tea because she doesn't know about him, like she's really worried. There's a part where she comes back out to the kitchen and he has two wine glasses sitting there and he goes, you know what, you didn't trust me, you don't know who I am, I haven't opened this yet, if you want some we can drink some. And she's like, no, 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 at first. And then eventually she gives in and she takes a drink, and then one leads to another, and they get all kind of goofy. Um, Basically, they're saying, well, the washer's still running or the dryer, one of the two. And when that thing goes off, we'll go to bed. Well, it goes off, and they're clearly not going to bed yet because they're still just chit chatting and drinking more. And eventually they do go to bed. She takes the bedroom and he takes the couch. And so in the middle of the night, she notices when she wakes up that her door is open and she can hear some weird noises. And so she gets up and she goes out to the living room where he's at, and he's on the couch and he's making all these noises, kind of like he's in a nightmare and he's muttering to himself. And she wakes him up and he's freaking out because obviously you're not supposed to wake someone up in the middle of their nightmares. And she said, you know, were you in my room? And he says, no, I wasn't. And so we come to find out that, you know, this dude really isn't the bad guy. He's just your average person, and they both booked this Airbnb together. Um, the next day comes and he goes to do his thing. He's actually in town to uh, look over the area, see how it is, because they're thinking about like purchasing the district. And she's there for obviously business and whatnot as well. But since he's gone, she starts like moseying around the house and looking at different things. She goes into the basement and she needs toilet paper. And so she finds toilet paper in the basement, and it leads her to want to, you know, look at other things, because what she doesn't realize is that the door to the basement shuts and it's locked, so she can't get out. And so she's trying to figure out ways to be able to get out. Is there a key? You know, the window won't open, so I can't get out that way. So she's just poking around and she finds this rope eventually that's mixed in with a couple other things on a rack, and she pulls the rope and a hidden doorway opens. And so she goes into the doorway, and it's a very dark hallway. It's rock, like it's not part of a finished house, not even part of an unfinished basement. It just looks like the ground. And
Very
so,
much a Michigan basement.
yeah. And so she's going through here and she finds a room that has a bed, a camera, and a bloody handprint on the wall. And
And a
so,
bucket.
oh, and a bucket. And she is freaked out, just as anybody else would. And so she's heads back into the basement, and she's trying to figure out how to get out, and she notices that the dude that's staying there with her pulls in, and she's trying to get his attention through the basement window, and he says, "I'll be there in a minute." I think I forget how he didn't have a key, did he?
They found a way to open the window so she could hand him the key.
Yeah, like just barely drop it through, because I didn't want to bust the window. And so he comes down there, and once again, the door shuts. And they head down to this hallway because he cannot believe what she just said. And he wants to see for himself. And so he sees the stuff, and he doesn't tell her that he keeps going. Because it's like, "Are you done yet? Are you done yet?" But he's not responding. So she goes to look for him, and he's not there. So she keeps going further and further into this thing, and then she finds another set of stairs to go down. And she's calling out his name, trying to figure out if that's where he is. And eventually, she does hear something call back, and it was this guy. I think his name's Keith, actually. Now that I remember his name. So he's yelling that he needs help, and so she goes down there. All of us are thinking, "What are you doing?" But she goes down there, and she does find him, and he tells her, "Something else is down here. We need to get out." And they're like going back and forth, making a ton of noise. And it's like, you guys, this is not the time. But
They're fighting over which way the exit is.
yeah, when she clearly just came from that way. And essentially what happens is this thing that he tells her that is down there gets to them and takes his head and smashes it against the wall a couple of times to basically kill him. And the woman, she starts running, and then I think she like screams and the camera cuts out. And then this movie like completely shifts. Okay, this is where we see Justin Long. This is probably about 20 to 25 minutes into the film. So we got like this setup that happened in the very beginning. And Justin Long's character is talking on the phone. He's having a great time, driving his car, his convertible, I think in California. And he gets this phone call that he's basically under investigation for, the stuff that's popular in the news, like with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. He is accused of these sexual things that he did to a girl. And so he's trying to figure out how to, not get in trouble. He's saying he didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. But what it boils down to is that he's, losing his job because of this stuff. The case has not happened at all. It's just that she said it, so he lost his job. And he goes to his accountant to try to see, how much money do I have? How much time do I have with this money? And based on his spending, he says, you got like a couple months. And it's even to the point where the accountant's like, I don't even want to work for you anymore because I know you're heading down a bad road. So he loses basically everything that he's known to have. And so he decides, well, if I'm going to make some money, I need to start selling some of these properties that I own. So we learn that he's actually the owner of the Airbnb. So he goes back, which this place takes place in Detroit, Michigan, the Airbnb. So he heads over there, flies from California, and goes to his Airbnb. And when he gets in there, he notices that all the stuff from our two characters in the first place is still there. So he's freaking out, like, who is in my house? Why didn't the cleaning lady come by? And he's talking to whoever manages his stuff, trying to figure out all these answers. He's really getting no answers. But eventually he just stays there for a little bit, and eventually he finds the rope in the basement. And so he goes down this area and he's like, oh my God, this is so much more square footage I can put on the house and sell it for more. And so he's going through there with his tape measure and trying to see how much square footage he can add to this house. He sees these weird things, just like the room with the bed, the camera, and all that. Really doesn't think anything of it. He just moves the bed out of the way so he can measure the room.
Even when he finds the second set of stairs, any normal person would be like, no way am I going down there. And he's just like, let me just measure each one of these stairs. Like,
Yeah, which
da-da-da.
I call a bunch of crap that tape measure would stay at the top and go all the way down without being messed up. I've used one. I know it doesn't work that way. But essentially, he goes down further into this thing, and he starts to notice that some things are weird going on. And hears the noises, sees the creature briefly, and so he's running away from the creature and he falls into a hole. And like a trap door shuts on top of him. And when he's in this little like trap, he's actually with the woman from the very beginning, because this is where she's been held prisoner, so to speak. And the creature, is looking down on them while they're in this thing, and it holds a baby bottle down to them. And the woman's like, just drink it. And he's like, absolutely not. And, she said, just do what you're supposed to and everything will be okay. And what it boils down to is that because he's refusing, the creature basically goes down there and gets in his face, and the girl is able to escape. She takes off running, and she breaks through the basement window to get out. We forgot to mention earlier on, there's also homeless people in the area, and they were telling her to leave, get out, because they knew that something was wrong with this house. And she runs into the same homeless guy at this point, and he tries to give her shelter. So at this point in the movie, we're going to have a timeout so we can cover something else. We see this flashback-ish type scene that's kind of showing the history of this house. And we have this really shisty, like plumber dude. Oh, he's an electrician. Because he went to the store, got all these supplies, and he is telling this woman that he sees, I believe he saw her in the parking lot and followed her to her house. And he said, there's electric outlet, or there is outages in the area. I want to just double check, make sure yours is okay. And when he goes in there, he goes into one of the bathrooms and unlatches the window so that it's unlocked. And then we don't really see much from where it like builds to, but we see him go to his house, and the neighbor is like, I'm selling my house. I'm sorry, the neighborhood's getting pretty bad. And this guy that we're following, he basically says, I'm never moving. And so he goes into his house with his stuff, and he opens the door, which I believe would be this basement, in reference to what we've seen in the past. And we kind of just hear this scream of a woman, and he goes into the basement, and then it cuts out. Let's go back to our other characters. So she gets away, and she's getting informed by the homeless guy what actually happened in this house and what is she seeing with this creature, because he says she comes out at night, so find somewhere safe. And he tells her that what happened with this house is that this man basically raped a woman, and then every time that they had a child, he would also rape the child. And it was like a descending amount of the generations that he kept mating with, so to speak. And this creature is the result of a good handful of those things, or a good handful of those instances happening. And so uh, we kind of go back and forth between the girl and Justin Long's character. And now he is pulled to a room. This is all happening while she was running away. He was pulled to a separate room that has like this video playing of nursing babies and whatnot. And the woman tries to nurse him. And obviously, things aren't going very well. And he is able to escape and get away from her. And he's running through the like underground area. And he eventually finds this room, and it has a bell attached to it. Like if you pulled the string, it would ring the bell. And so he goes in the room, risking that it might, ring. It doesn't, but he goes in the room, and it's like a bedroom. It looks like a kitchen kind of built in there as well, like a little bunker. And there's a bed, and in the bed is that old man that owned the house. He's looking very, very rough. He can barely move. And basically, this dude is wanting, I believe, Justin Long's character to shoot him, to like just end it, because he's been down there forever.
Justin Long was able to give him the cart because he couldn't figure out what the guy wanted. And
Oh
in the
yeah,
cart was a drawer where he found the gun. So the guy was able to shoot himself.
that's right. Because at first he pointed it, like while he was picking up, he pointed it towards him, and then it went towards himself. That's right. So then he's able to grab the gun after this happens, and then he takes off. And eventually he is able to get out as well. This creature is chasing after him, and the woman is able to get a vehicle and run this thing into the house and basically make a hole in the house so that he can get out. The creature is stunned momentarily, but the two of our main characters take off, and
Well, I think she thought that she killed it because it was
yeah,
pinned between the car and the house. But when she went down to the basement and was able to get Justin Long out of there, the creature was gone. It wasn't pinned against the house anymore.
that's right.
And she knew that the homeless guy had a safe place to hide, so that's where they went.
Oh, then maybe I had some of those things crossed up. My apologies. Um, but eventually, they are talking with this homeless guy, and oh yes, then he tells both of them. My apologies, everybody. Whoops. Uh, but eventually, that creature kills the homeless guy, and then our two main characters are back on the run, and they head towards a water tower, and they both go all the way up the water tower, and uh, the girl gets hurt, I believe, because she's taking a little extra time to get up the water tower, and Justin Long's character basically sacrifices her. Like he throws her, pushes her, throws her ish off the water tower, and the creature is actually lunges for the girl and like grabs her, and then lands on its back, so that our main character doesn't really get phased from it. She's still alive, hurting, but still alive. And when Justin's character goes down there and finds out she's alive, he's like, "I'm so sorry. I thought, this was the best thing I could do. I was freaking out." And,
The creature's not dead.
yes, the creature's not dead. The creature kills Justin Long's character, and then
The main girl found the gun.
and shoots the creature.
Yes.
And then the movie is over, like abruptly. The credits roll, and we see a couple of like shots come back of the nighttime, but it's nothing significant, so to speak. We don't get to see, what did she do after she shot this thing? Nothing. It's just super abrupt, and it is what it is. So what are your thoughts on the movie, Sarah?
I liked it. I thought it was there were good surprises in it, and I don't mean good like happy moments. I mean good like I'm actually surprised by how that turned out because in the beginning I was really convinced that the guy that was at the Airbnb was really the house owner and that when she found that room he was going to lock her in there and do whatever torture or whatever he was planning to do. So for him to not actually be the bad guy was a big surprise for me. And we watch a lot of horror movies, so it's not super often where I'm actually surprised by what happens. So I thought that was pretty cool. I know you had a point with the inbreeding that like seemed a little unrealistic. And I don't want to I don't want to take that away from you if you want to mention that. Um, but overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. Lots of twists and turns, a little bit of comedy with like how Justin Long's character wanted to measure the basement and just kept measuring things like la ti da because he wanted the house to be sold for more. Um, I feel like those humor spots were in good points of the film, and that it was um, I don't know. It was different than what you'd typically expect, and it was an interesting surprise, I think, to for the movie to be as good as it was, especially because the only major actor that we had was Justin Long, and he wasn't even in that much of the movie. So for you to have what I would assume would be a low to medium budget because you don't have a lot of well-known actors, um, it turned out pretty good, I think.
I don't quite I think I remember what you're referring to, but I don't know if it's exactly what you're referring to, that you wanted me to say. Was it
What
like
you Go ahead.
was it when I don't remember who said it. I want to say it was the homeless guy said it, but or maybe it said this many years ago. It's in my head that it was a 40-year span. Like,
Well, we know it was during the one homeowner's lifespan, right? Because when they did the flashback, he was buying stuff for a home birth. And so, what they're trying to insinuate with this creature is that she is the byproduct of multiple inbreedings. That's why she's the way
right.
that she is. And, like, she's freakishly tall. She has really bad speech. The shape of her mouth is not really normal. Um, they're kind of insinuating that she's the byproduct of multiple inbreedings. But, one typical man's lifespan, he's maybe, let's just be optimistic here and say he's 80 when he's laying in that bed. I feel like that's a pretty probable age for him. So, how many, generations could he really have inbred to be able to have somebody that messed up if he's only 80 years old? That's what I'm really trying to get at that you brought up to me. It seems like
Seems like it
you'd
could
have
be
to,
like four at the most.
right. It seems like you'd have to be more than just one person doing the inbreeding to be able to have a byproduct that's that significant of a creature. That's kind of like the one plot hole, I guess, if you will, that you pointed out to me.
Well, I've never tried it, so I mean, I can't say whether it is or not, but yeah, we thought it was interesting. I don't remember who said it, but I could almost swear that it was a 40-year difference between the flashback and the present day. Whether it was a date that we saw or someone said it, because we had talked about on the car ride home, like, you know, for him to be able to do this, the girls, granted, they had to be girls. So like
Yeah.
if they had a boy at one point, that makes the amount of possible times that he did it go down. But aside from all that stuff, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. It was one of those movies where it's like, this is messed up. I want to see more. So I had heard that the guy in the beginning that was already there, I had heard that he wasn't a bad guy, like he was innocent. So, when Sarah was, we were at the drive-in, so when she was talking and saying like, I don't know about that guy, um, in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I'll keep my mouth shut so you can still enjoy, what's going on from that point of view. But I thought it was really cool what they did with it. I felt like the pacing was really good. It made me really wonder at first because I feel like the way that this movie was set up had the exact same formula as Friday the 13th remake. I don't know if many of you remember, but basically the way that movie started was we had this one group of people come through. Jason killed them all, except one got away. And then another group came through and then dealt with the aftermath of what happened from the first group, which is essentially what this movie was. Because, like, the first 20 to 25 minutes was what you saw from the trailer. And essentially, that could have almost been like a short film on its own. And then we have Justin's character come in and propel the movie forward the rest of the way. So I thought the formula was similar to that. So I was kind of anticipating stuff like that to happen. But I do think the twist was enough to be like, that was pretty cool. The ending, like I said, was abrupt. So I wanted a little bit more of closure from the film to know what was happening. But ultimately, I recommend it. If it comes to streaming service, definitely give it a shot if you don't want to, pay to go see movies in the theaters. But it's worth a shot. It's not one of your horror movies that is just stupid and terrible. It was pretty good.
I would
I would
say
say,
gore factor is pretty minimal if you're somebody like me who doesn't like gore. There wasn't really a whole lot that I remember that was like, ah, it's too gory, I can't watch.
I want to
Um,
say the most gore that was there was when she was smashing his head into the side of the wall because you actually saw some blood for that.
right. But even that was a pretty dark scene. It wasn't super graphic.
It's nowhere near Saw if you want a comparison. But if I had to have one nitpicky thing I would say about this movie, it would be when we are introduced to Justin's character, there's a lot of talking that I feel like wasn't super necessary. Because like he's on the phone a lot and he's like, well, like we don't really get more from the story. It's kind of like if you listen to the media at all within the last year or two with like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, you know exactly what he's going through. So to kind of just basically see that happen really quickly, but also to maybe a point of being drawn out, um, I didn't think they needed to emphasize it nearly as much as they did, if that makes sense. Because I got it right away. Once I heard what happened, I was like, oh, they're trying to portray this in a film. But that's my only small little nitpick thing. It's cool that it was in Detroit. You've seen, my shirts, even this shirt today. We're Detroit fans. So it was kind of cool to see that. Um, Oh, I guess one thing we didn't say in the overview is that when it was daytime, she actually got to see how destroyed the neighborhood was. So she knew something was kind of up with that. Why is this one perfect house sitting here while all the rest are in shambles? So that was kind of added to it. Um, Anything else you wanted to say, Sarah?
No, I think that really about covers it. I'd say definitely worth seeing if you like horror movies or suspense. So,
Yeah, same here. All right, we're gonna wrap this one up. We are gonna have another video out today. We saw Smile as well, so we will be talking about that. These videos are gonna come out right around the same time, so make sure to check out both videos today. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and also drop us a like if you like the video. And then also drop us some comments. Let us know what you thought of this movie if you've seen it. What was your opinion, whether you liked it or not, whether you agreed or disagreed with what we had to say about it. Drop them in the comments and let us hear it. And then as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.